Well, as you know, open enrollment period is approaching fast, November 1st, 2019.
You are listening to Wealth Talks, and today we have a special guest from you, Jack Hooper with Take Command Health. You may remember Jack from previous episodes of the podcast. Jack is a health insurance expert, and he's an expert in choosing health insurance for individuals and all the options that are available for business owners as well. How can you provide benefits for your employees in the most cost-effective and flexible manner? So open enrollment is just around the corner, November 1st through December 15th. Jack, welcome to the show. We're looking forward to hear what's new.
Hey, thanks, John. Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate you having me on again.
It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure having you. The information that you have to share is very helpful to everyone here.
We always say that you can't make the right decision until you know the information on what to make your decision about. And so with open enrollment so fastly approaching, let's talk about some of the options people have at this time of the year, Jack.
For sure. It's super important. You know, we chuckle when open enrollment season starts, that it's our most favorite time of the year. We get really excited about it, but we know for others it can feel really overwhelming and kind of lonely and frustrating if you're shopping for yourself or if you're a small business owner trying to figure out a solution for your team. We see people just pull their hair out, and would love to share some thoughts and tips and tricks today so that we can make it a less painful and more fruitful experience.
That's right. Well, I know here on the podcast before, Jack, you've shared some of the options specifically for individuals and small business owners with the QSEHRA HRA. I know we'll cover some of those a little bit later, but I know there are some new options that are on the block for 2020. Can you tell us a little bit about the new options available?
Yes, and we're super excited about it. So there's a new HRA, and I realize HRA probably sounds like health insurance lingo to you, but it's new, and it's really a fundamentally new way that employers can provide benefits. So it's called an individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement, or ICHRA, or you'll hear me call it ICHRA, which isn't the nicest acronym, but it's a lot shorter than saying it out every time.
Yeah, government's great for coming up with acronyms.
Yeah, they don't think about it. But anyway, ICHRA at its heart, it's a fundamentally new way to provide benefits. So in the past, if you're a small group employer, your only option was to purchase. It's either all or nothing. You purchase the group plan, right, and then give it to your employees, and they get to pick one or two flavors of Blue Cross or Aetna or whatever it is you choose. But really, all the responsibility, all the burden falls on the small business owner. Mm-hmm. Now, in 2017, what we talked about a few years ago was the advent of QSEHRA, the Qualified Small Employer Health Reimbursement Arrangement, which now gets even more souped up with ICHRA. And what that allows is employers, instead of choosing a plan, they can say, you know what, I'm just going to give my employees $300 a month or $600 a month and reimburse tax-free for them to go buy their own health insurance plan. Okay. So a great analogy we like to share, it's kind of like the 401k of health insurance. Group plans, it's kind of like the pension plan, for retirement, where, the employer is in charge of everything and manages everything for the employees. These new HRAs allow kind of 401k approach, or say, you know what, I'm just going to give a certain amount of money and then step back and not hassle with managing or administering a group plan.
And actually, I would say it's even better than a 401k because you don't have to give up the use of that money. You get it pretty much right away to pay for that health insurance coverage. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing is, and there is a learning curve, right? Employees can feel freaked out if you're like, oh, we're canceling the group plan and you're getting this. But then the reality is, you see, once they start using it, they love it because there's that immediate gratification of, in addition to premiums, you can use it for medical expenses if if you, the employer, decide to allow that. So
Sure.
from the employee's perspective, with the group plan, they probably got a $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 deductible. It may or may not have their doctors in network, and their kid gets sick or they need a prescription, and they've just got this mountain of a deductible to claim or to climb. With the HRA though, hey, all right, I've got a few $100 in my HRA. I need a prescription. I take a picture of it on my phone, send in the receipt, and I immediately get a reimbursement on my next paycheck.
Okay.
Or my kid needs to see the doctor. I take a picture of the bill and I get reimbursed for it. So it's a lot. The employee experience, once they figure it out, is way superior. And for companies, you're not having to manage this, crazy plans anymore.
Yeah. So that's the QSEHRA. How is the new HRA, the ICHRA? How's that doing different?
Yeah. So ICHRA, really kind of builds on QSEHRA.
Okay. So
and again, all these acronyms, we'll provide some links so folks can jump in and learn more about them. But
Great.
ICHRA, really takes the handcuffs off. First, they both work the same way. Employers provide money for reimbursement. But QSEHRA was limited. It could only work with employers up to 50 employees. So you had to be a small business to use QSEHRA. It has some pretty restrictive reimbursement limits where you can only do about $400 a month for single employees or up to $800 with family, which is great if you want to pitch in a little bit, but it's not really a serious benefit offering. And then finally, QSEHRA had a big limitation that it really had to be offered to all employees on the same terms. So if you're a 4-person, chiropractic office or dental office, it's great if you want to give everyone $400. But if you have a mix of full-time and part-time or salary or hourly, well, maybe I want to give $400 to my full-time, but I don't want to give $400 to my part-time.
Oh, sure.
And QSEHRA could run into some issues there. So with ICHRA, you probably figured out, the changes from what I was talking about, but it has no limit. So if you're a large employer, it can satisfy the employer mandate and work with any size company.
Oh, very nice.
It also has no contribution limit, so which was really unique, and we were pleased that kind of stuck through the regulatory process. But we've had law offices and consulting firms set up HRAs where I'm going to reimburse $2,000 a month. Okay. Now, the nice thing is the employer can set those generous limits, but if the employees don't claim it, then the employers keep it. So there's no loss of funds, and you're not pouring money into a premium hole, as we call it, with a group plan.
Oh, that's nice.
And then finally, there's a lot more design flexibility. So you can actually offer different arrangements for full-time and part-time, or just hourly or salary, or even by work location or where your employees live. If you have multiple locations, you could give, $300 a month to employees at this office and $600 to employees at this other office. So you can even mix and match it with group plans too, if there's reasons to keep it. So
nice.
That's a long-winded response. That's where we get really excited about this new model of insurance and what it could mean for employers and employees in the market. And it's all new this year.
So Jack,
starts January 1, 2020.
As an employer, the funds that I contribute to an ICHRA, are they still considered like a tax deduction for my business, or do I have to claim that as income on my K-1?
Great question. Yeah, and I think that's what's really important is it's really leveled the playing field, between traditional group plans and these sorts of arrangements. With ICHRA, it becomes a full business expense, so full deduction.
Nice.
Off the income of the business. So it's really great to have that kind of level playing field now. And then for employees, they obviously can get their reimbursements without having to claim any income tax or pay any payroll taxes.
Very good.
Okay. So basically, if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like the ICHRA is a new and improved version of the QSEHRA. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, more flexibility, more options, more higher limits, and all of that. So that makes a lot of sense. What about the EBHRA? That's another HRA that was introduced along with this other new one. What's the place for that one?
That's called the Accepted Benefit HRA. Okay. And we were working with the regulators on a lot of these. And to your point earlier about trying to get better acronyms, we tried to get them to call it the DEBRA for the Accepted Benefit HRA, but that comment was rejected. So we didn't get DEBRA, we got EBRHRA. And the way that works is it works a little bit more like a traditional HRA if you're familiar with that function, or maybe you've had one at previous employers or offered one to your employees. So it rides along top a traditional group plan. But what's unique about it is it can reimburse. Traditional HRAs typically could only reimburse medical expenses, and employees have to be a part of the group plan to be able to use it. Well, with EBRHRA, employees can actually opt out of the group plan and then still get a little bit of money for medical expenses, or use it to enroll in short-term limited medical plans and things like that. So it's a really interesting kind of design. Early reactions to it, at first everyone thought it was going to be huge. Now everyone's kind of waiting to see what's going to shape up with it. But really some opportunity there if you have employees, if you're offering a group plan and you don't want to change it, but you have some employees that aren't taking it or can't afford it, and you still want to provide them a little bit, the EBRHRA Accepted Benefit HRA might be a good fit.
Okay. So it sounds like for most business owners, they're going to want to go with the ICHRA, which gives them more flexibility and more money that the employees can take and use to buy their own individual plans that are going to fit their needs. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, we're seeing a lot more traction and interest on the ICHRA, just because it becomes an alternative. It's a new model to think about employer-sponsored benefits. EBRHRA is a great way if you want to stick with your current, we call it the old model of group benefit, but add some tweaks to it. Okay. So I think there's room for both, but especially if you're a small employer, if you've got a handful of employees, ICHRA or QSEHRA really is potentially going to be a better model for you, to explore. It's just a lot simpler, and employees can buy what they want. It's tax efficient and it's spending efficient. Just makes a lot more sense.
So I'm an employee, let's say, of a company that has an ICHRA, and they are giving me, $1,000 a month. Can I use those funds to purchase my own health insurance? And if I can, am I restricted of buying health insurance or a faith-based participation group type coverage?
Good question. So for both ICHRA and QSEHRA, individual plans, we call them kind of the major medical or ACA compliant plans that you would buy either on the public exchanges or off the exchanges. And we really like the off exchange plans in some areas we can get into a little bit more about. But those plans will work with either one. After that, it is a little bit what qualifies. So all employees have to have coverage to be able to draw claims. So if they don't buy a plan, then they can't make claims. But the regulations are a little bit different. For QSEHRA, the requirement is that employees maintain minimum essential coverage, or MEC. And this gets into the weeds of health insurance, and it's where your health insurance agent or someone can help you understand. I'll post some resources we can link to under the podcast. But
great.
MEC could be so faith-based plans specifically don't count as MEC, but there's some supplement things you can do that can get it to that level. And it also includes, the unique thing with QSEHRA is MEC also includes your spouse's plan. So if you're an employee and being offered a QSEHRA, and you happen to be married and your spouse can get great coverage, you can actually pay for portions of the premium for you to be on your spouse's plan. That's pretty cool.
Okay.
With ICHRA, although we get more design flexibility, the plans rate that you have to be on are a little bit more strict. So it has to be an individual major medical plan or a Medicare plan. Medicare will work with both if you're over 65. So that's just something to be mindful of. If you're an employer that want to implement one of these models, based on what your employees use or what they might be apt to use or what's available in your local area, we can help coach you through, okay, you might need to do ICHRA, because you're a large company, or you need these extra design parameters. If not, though, we'd probably say do QSEHRA just because it has a little bit more flexibility of the types of plans that employees can purchase.
Okay. So employees could purchase, more of the faith-based sharing, or they have more flexibilities with the original, the QSEHRA, rather than the new plan, the new HRA.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. And there's actually an executive order that was just issued. So it won't, or just request, an executive order from the president asking the department to make some more rulings on faith-based plans, on are they medical expenses, are they deductible? There is a lot of movement where they wouldn't be considered health insurance per se, but they would be considered medical expenses. So that's important, for your users and listeners to follow. We're hoping in the next few months we get the okay that sharing plans can be deducted from your taxes just like medical expenses.
Great.
And in that case, then we can fit them under the QSEHRA a little bit more smoothly. So lots of movement there as folks kind of work through these issues and figure it out.
Okay. That's
well,
good to
I know there's been a lot of information coming out of like Ted Cruz's Senate office and Rand Paul's Senate office out of Kentucky about being able to purchase across state lines for your coverage. Mm-hmm. Update us about what's happening with that, Jack.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a lot of the legislative stuff on health insurance has really stalled. So we watched the state line thing, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to move anywhere right now with the election coming up and Congress kind of in a deadlock. Everything that I've been talking about with the new HRAs, that's all moved forward really on the regulatory front. And is surprisingly bipartisan, which is always kind of refreshing and exciting to hear. So QSEHRA was actually an Obama administration initiative, and then ICHRA was a Trump administration that really was building on what the Obama administration had done. So we joke that, they actually agreed and did something together, but you never hear about that in the news as much.
Sure.
But the state line thing is interesting, and it's actually something that we think is kind of alleviated by ICHRA, because let's say you have employees in multiple states, and you want to give your people and your employees in Texas $400, and let's say in Arizona, $500, in California $300. Well, employees are just going to take that money and they can buy in their local market. So being able to get doctors with their plans, or plans with their doctors and the coverage they want in their local market, I think that's going to solve a lot of the angst people have, about wanting to buy across state lines where there's coverage shortages and things like that. But we'll see. It feels like the legislation has really stalled, but a lot of things happening on the regulatory front, which has been exciting.
Very good.
Wonderful. So with the deadline for open enrollment coming up here, the window's November 1st through December 15th this year. If business owners are looking at getting one of these HRA plans set up for their employees, what are the timelines that they need to look at so that the employees then have coverage or time to get their coverage in place before the end of this window?
Great question. And that's always been one of the biggest challenges is, an employer wants to set this up, but then their employees can't buy health insurance because it's the middle of the year.
Okay.
So fortunately with open enrollment coming up now is a great time. Most states, as you mentioned, it runs from November 1 to December 15th. So as long as you get this set up kind of November, early December, your employees have time to buy a plan that starts January 1, presumably when you'd want to start this.
Okay.
But the great news is next year, starting in 2020, setting up an ICHRA or QSEHRA will trigger an open enrollment, a special enrollment event.
Oh, wonderful.
Which is really cool. So, if you're a business owner and
That's
you're on
something new, isn't it?
off-calendar cycle, or you want to set this up in April, then the start date of the ICHRA will give your employees 60 days before and after to be able to buy health insurance.
Okay.
So it's really nice they solved that problem. It makes this approach much more
evergreen,
functional year round, and
certainly
feel much more like a normal benefit. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a business owner, you're super busy at the end of the year. It sounds like you could wait till the beginning of the year to set one of these up. You still have to figure out open enrollment options for your employees for renewing for 2020 now. But then it sounds like you could set up the ICHRA or the QSEHRA later in next year. Okay.
So, Jack, we're talking to people that have, partnerships. We're talking to sole proprietors. We're talking to, people that own S corporations and C corporations. What are the restrictions that have been placed on the HRA accounts for different filing, different tax filing corporations and partnerships?
Yes. As an owner of a small business, there's always rules and exceptions for you, right? So these HRAs are designed and they work great with your W-2 employee. So anyone that's on a W-2 can usually participate in the HRA, including owners. So if you're an owner and you are an employee of the business, you get a W-2, then usually you can participate.
Okay.
There are some nuances for S corp owners, and for if you're an LLC partner and you're receiving, dividends or 1065 instead of a W-2. It's something we want to look at because in that case you probably can't participate in the HRA. You could still buy a health plan, but you would take your tax deduction directly on the HRAs are really for you to be able to move money from the employer to the employee without incurring payroll taxes and income taxes and becoming a business expense. If you're a business owner in a partnership or an S corp, you would probably take the deduction, more directly. So we have some information and resources we can help with that. It's always a good accountant. It's always a good CPA question, though, to make sure that you're taking it most efficiently and properly.
Okay. Sounds good. And then as far as the individuals getting coverage, whether the employer puts in one of these plans and individuals now need to shop for their coverage, or if there's just people that need to get coverage on their own shopping for coverage this year. I know you have certain states that you can, you have a special finder on your website that helps people come up with the options in their area. Have you expanded to any new states this year?
We have. We'll have our individual platform in 14 states this year, which is really exciting. Some new ones we're adding are Ohio, New Jersey, North Carolina. I'm trying to think what else over there. But anyway, no matter where you are, a lot of our clients are Texas, Arizona, California, Florida, Georgia. If you're in those states or some of the others, we'd love to help you out. Our website is takecommandhealth.com, and just click on for individuals if you're shopping for yourself.
Sure, and I'll put some of these links in the resources as well, Jack, so that they can access the individual side, also the business side as well. And if you could send me the list of those states, then I'll be sure to include that in the resources. That way, as you're listening to this, you can quickly look and see if your state's covered, and if Take Command Health will be able to help you find the best options in your area. So that'll be wonderful.
And John, you're also going to list the previous podcasts that Jack has been a guest on, because we didn't get talk a lot about individual coverage or how to shop for your best deal on health insurance, and we've covered that in the past.
Correct. We'll include those podcasts so you can check that out as well. If you have any questions about the open enrollment period, go ahead and contact Take Command Health, or you can call the Life Benefits office, and we'll be able to get you connected there. Number here is 702-660-7000. Jack, any last words that you have for everyone listening before we close this week?
Yeah. Thanks again for having me on. So I did want to mention we can do the HRAs in all states. So that's
very good.
That's a federal thing that goes in all states and can help connect you to your local market as well, or folks that we trust in that market. But yeah, I think, as the benefit season comes up, I know as we talked about at the beginning, it causes stress and anxiety. Hopefully this has helped a little bit inform you of some new options that are coming out, and can really take the stress and burden off. If you're an independent professional or small business owner, we'd love to help and are happy to help you explore these kind of alternatives that we think it's a lot less headache, a lot simpler, and can provide a better benefit for your employees as well. So yeah, thanks again for having us on.
You're welcome, Jack. It's always good to talk with you. And if you're listening to the podcast right now and you're saying, well, I'm not a business owner, what did this all have to do about me? You can be the incentive to light the fire under your employer to get an HRA system rolling so that you can shop individually for your insurance, health insurance. And of course, that's what we're all about here at Life Benefits, is you taking control of your own money so that you can keep more of it and lose less.
That's right. Thank you for joining us today, Jack. It's been a pleasure. You are listening to Wealth Talks, where we talk about solutions for your prosperity. Have a wonderful week.